What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 12. Sleepers and studs. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to give you a sleeper pick and my favorite stud at each position. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, NFL Week 12. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. So my stud pick, pretty obvious pick here. I like Patrick Mahomes from the Kansas City Chiefs playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes has averaged 28.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.8 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 15% owned, projected at 27.1 fantasy points here in Week 12. He's $8,200 DraftKings salary, $800 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 43 points scored in this game, with the Kansas City Chiefs favored by 15.5. So Patrick Mahomes has scored 31, 35, and 36 fantasy points in the last 3 games. He rushed the ball 4, 7, and 6 times in those games. So with some injuries for the Kansas City Chiefs, these teams have been able to keep it a little bit closer than the Chiefs would want here. So that's forcing Patrick Mahomes to turn up the heat, score more fantasy points. So I like Patrick Mahomes here versus the LA Rams. Okay, so my sleeper pick at the quarterback position is Derek Carr from the Las Vegas Raiders and playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 10th worst defense overall. They give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Derek Carr has averaged 16.5 fantasy points per game on the season. He gets an average of 1.5 rush attempts per game. Only going to be about 4% owned, projected at 15.8 fantasy points here in Week 12. I'm going to bump that up to 18 fantasy points. And he's only $5,700 DraftKings salary, $1,600 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Raiders trailing by 3.5. Now, Derek Carr has been heating up. He scored 23, 18, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games. We know he has fantastic wide receivers. He's got some monster upside when he wants to show it, if he can pull a game together. So I like Derek Carr here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. My running back stud is Derrick Henry from the Tennessee Titans playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing running backs. Derrick Henry has averaged 21.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 23 rush attempts per game and 2.3 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 12% owned, projected at 18.5 fantasy points here in Week 12. He's $8,300 DraftKings salary, $1,200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 42.5 points scored in this game, with the Tennessee Titans trailing by 2.5. Derrick Henry has scored 25, 9, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 28, 19, and 17 rush attempts on top of 2 and 3 pass targets. So he's getting monster volume, and he scored 25 plus fantasy points 2 out of the last 3 games. So I like Derrick Henry here versus the Cincinnati Bengals.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, my sleeper pick at the running back position is Jeff Wilson Jr. from the Miami Dolphins, playing the Houston Texans, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Jeff Wilson Jr. has averaged 12 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.8 rush attempts per game and 2.1 pass targets per game. Now it looks like he's taken the lead running back spot from Raheem Mostert. He got 17 rush attempts last week on top of 5 pass targets. So he got 22 touches last week, scored 25 fantasy points, only going to be about 9% owned, projected at 14 fantasy points here in week 12. And he's only $5,900 DraftKings salary, $1,800 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47 points scored in this game, with the Miami Dolphins favored by 13.5. So this is a great game script here. The Dolphins could take a 2-touchdown lead in this one. Could be a running game script. So Jeff Wilson Jr. could see 20 plus touches again here this week in a fantastic matchup with a low price tag and relatively low ownership. So I like Jeff Wilson Jr. here versus the Houston Texans. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So my wide receiver stud is Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Bucks, playing the Cleveland Browns, who have the 8th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing wide receivers. Mike Evans has averaged 15.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8.4 pass targets per game. Now, he's been on the field for 93% of the snaps, only going to be about 7% owned, projected at 15.2 fantasy points here in week 12. He's $6,700 DraftKings salary, $900 more on FanDuel, and Mike Evans has scored 10, 9, and 21 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 11, and 11 pass targets. Now, Tom Brady had a fantastic game last week. Mike Evans with only 6 pass targets, but I think he's going to get more looks here this week. And we know he has 20 plus fantasy point upside. His price has come all the way down under 7K. His ownership is low as well, and a pretty good matchup here. So I like Mike Evans here versus the Cleveland Browns.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, my sleeper pick at the wide receiver position is Brandon Ayuk from the San Francisco 49ers, playing the New Orleans Saints, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Brandon Ayuk has averaged 14 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.6 pass targets per game. He's only going to be about 3% owned, been on the field for 92% of the snaps. He's projected at 12.9 fantasy points here in week 12. He's $6,400 DraftKings salary, only $300 more on FanDuel. So I like that price on FanDuel. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 43.5 points scored in this game, with the 49ers favored by 9.5. Now, Brandon Ayuk has looked good all season. In the last 3 games, he scored 16, 13, and 20 fantasy points off of 4, 7, and 6 pass targets. Now, this is a great matchup, and Christian McCaffrey is opening up the passing lanes for these wide receivers. So I like Brandon Ayuk here versus the New Orleans Saints. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. The clear-cut stud on the slate is Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs, playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing tight ends. Travis Kelce has averaged 23.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 9.4 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 79% of the snaps, going to be about 9% owned, projected at 20.2 fantasy points here in week 12. He's $7,700 DraftKings salary. Travis Kelce has scored 39, 20, and 24 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 10, 7, and 17 pass targets. So I like Travis Kelce here versus the LA Rams. Okay, my sleeper pick at the tight end position is Noah Fant from the Seattle Seahawks, playing the Las Vegas Raiders, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Noah Fant has averaged 6.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.8 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 6% owned, projected at 7.3 fantasy points here in week 12. He's only $3,200 DraftKings salary, $1,900 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 47.5 points scored in this game, with the Seahawks favored by 3.5. Noah Fant has scored 6, 15, and 4 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 4, 6, and 2 pass targets. So I love the matchup. I think the price tag is great on DraftKings, and I think he's going to get a handful of targets in this one. So I like Noah Fant here versus the Las Vegas Raiders.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite
Player for this NFL slate.
I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.